how you all doing? Before I do this video, you may recall, if you've watched these, a while ago I did a video about the legend of how we got clotted cream, and that had Blunderbuss, the giant who lived on Dartmoor, and I will link that somehow so you can see it if you haven't seen it. And this video is about more of his kin. So without further ado, welcome to another episode of Ghosts, Myths and Legends. Are you sitting comfortably? Shall we begin? Many moons ago, the West Country, in particular Devon, was home of the giants. It was their domain. They would roam free and wild and happily, doing all the things that giants love to do. That is, until one day a prince called Brutus came from Asia with a big band of Trojan warriors who had all survived the Trojan War. Now, Brutus came to England and he happened to land at Totnes. Now, obviously, when they landed here, they came across our resident giants. You know, this was their land. Obviously, they're going to bump into them. And as always happens, Brutus didn't go, we've been kicked out of our land because of the Greeks, or because of the whole Trojan War and everything. You know, we know what that feeling's like. We should befriend these people, or get on their good side, or because heck, we're the people that have, we've lived through that, we've seen it, we've been dispersed. No, oh no, of course not. No. Brutus decided, with his band of warriors, to drive out, fight and defeat the giants eventually, who retreated into the tors and hills and cliffs of Dartmoor, and some went into Cornwall. Now, while the battle was going on, the giant's leader, called xoxo, was wounded quite badly in the leg. So while the other giants managed to flee and went to their new respective lands in Dartmoor and such, he couldn't run away really, he couldn't flee, so he tried to hide in a bog. Now, you imagine, you're a big giant, you're not really going to hide very well in the bog. And Brutus's men found him. But I'll give him this, Brutus's men and Brutus himself, they treated xoxo really well. He was well looked after, and they tended his wound, and in time his wound healed, and he was, back to being fit as a fiddle. Now, you'd think here, they'd won basically, they'd been nice to xoxo, they'd healed his leg. They could have sent him back to his people and said, okay, you're all skilled warriors, but we've beat you, this area will be ours, you're free to go off with the other people. But no again. Brutus thought, you know what, we've got a giant here, wouldn't it be darn fun if we take this giant and I get one of my best men and we give them a wrestling match and they can fight to the death, in essence. And so Brutus chose a man called Quirinius, who had, by chance, had knowledge of fighting giants when they were in Africa. So the day was set. The giants were invited to come from where they'd gone off and made their new homes and had hidden away from these Trojans. And they were, sent out, invite you and come watch this match, we'll be friendly, there'll be no attacking, blah, blah, just come watch. And so the battle took place on Plymouth Hoe. You had the giants down one end and the Trojans the other, and in the middle was xoxo and Quirinius. Now, Quirinius was the more skilled fighter, but xoxo had his strength and sheer size on his side. That was his strength and his luck. He was 3 times the size of the men. And while the fight, it was a long, hard fight, they both put a lot of energy into it, No one was really getting the upper hand until at one point Gomagot managed to grab Crinius and he gave him a massive, massive bear hug that broke most of Crinius's ribs. And he was lying down on the ground and the giants were like, it's going to be all over, this is going to be an easy victory at last, they were cheering Gogamat on. It was assured to them in their mind it would be perfect. But alas, the fact that Crinius was wounded angered him. He was so angry and annoyed with himself for letting that happen that it caused an immense strength in him, all from his anger. And he managed to use this strength to grab hold of Gomagot by his girdle, and he lifted him up and threw him over the cliffs, where he smashed to pieces on the rocks below. The sea was stained red with his blood for miles. Now, obviously, after seeing this horrific sight, the leader had been massacred, basically. The giants were like, shit, not having it, not doing it. These people are obviously way beyond our capacities for fighting, and they went off. They ran back to their homes, a lot of them staying in Dartmoor, and like I said, some going into Cornwall. But thankfully, once they were there, they were left alone and untroubled for many, many years afterwards. And truth be told, I believe they quite enjoyed their time, the ones that lived on Dartmoor. They liked being on the high tors and being able to look down at all the places around them. They could see from miles into Wales down to South Devon. They could see if there were any other invaders on the horizon coming to try and take the bit of land that they'd now got after Brutus. And they were happy. One in particular, called Maxi Major, lived on Marden Down, where he could sit right on the tors and he would look down at the Tin Valley and just watch everything and see the little farms down below in the moorfolk. And he was very, very happy. And our Maxi Major was known as a bit of a cattle whisperer, a bit of a bullock whisperer. And cattle seemed to really like him too. It's like he had an affinity with them and seemed to know what was wrong with them, what they were thinking. They would go up to him and just really had this love and affection for him. And many a farmer had brought a wayward cow, a troubled bullock to Maxi Major and was like, this bull's acting up. What do you suggest? What do you think's going on with him? And all Maxi Major ever asked for in return was that once a week he was given 6 ewes so that he could make his favourite food, lamb stew, which he would eat like sort of every day. And obviously knowing that he was a giant, the damage and devastation that he could have, he could wreak on people, they didn't think that was too much of a hardship really. So they would happily give him his ewes. They got their bulls trained and sorted. It was a very happy relationship. I think the people were actually quite fond of our Maxi Major. One dark, stormy night, a couple of the locals were doing their meat delivery and taking the ewes up to him when they came across Maxi Major lying on the ground, dead as a doornail. Now, the locals ran back to the moor people and they were like, he's dead, what are we going to do? And they had a meeting about it and discussion, and obviously they couldn't leave him there to rot. They had too much respect for him and everything, and they were like, well, obviously we're going to bury him, it's the right thing to do. They couldn't drag him to like Morton, Hempstead or anything, And they thought, well, the easiest thing for us and what would be really nice and fitting for him is if we bury him on top of the down that he loves so much. And then his body could still be looking out over the view that he loved and the things that he liked to see. And so many shovels and lots and lots and lots of cider. We are Devon. Got to have a bit of cider. They went up with their shovels and their cider and started digging and digging and digging. And obviously this was a long job. You've got to make a hole big enough that you can put the giant in and you can cover him up. So yeah, it was a long, hard job and thirsty work. So obviously again, being us Devon folk, the cider didn't last very long. But finally they managed to get the hole deep enough and big enough. They managed to grab Maxi Major's body, pull him in, rolled his body into the hole, which he hit with a thud. This thud was so loud and fuddy, if you get me, that it shook all the trees and all the rocks. His body hit the ground with such a hard thud that the trees and the rocks shook all along the River Team. Now they covered him up with dirt, and then they put lots of large rocks on his body to sort of stop anyone disturbing it, and that's like a sort of a grave marker and a moment of respect, and you know, this is his grave, we're gonna like you do. And that was that, or so they thought. They would go up regularly, make sure no one had disturbed it, and sort of pay respects. Like I said, they liked Maxim Major. He was, as giants go, he was an alright sort. And when they would go up, they would see that very often there was always cattle around his grave. They were just there in their little herds, as if they missed him and trying to pay their respects to him in their own little way. Then it was one very dark, cold night. A miracle happened. Suddenly, our Maxi Major had come back to life, and he pushed the dirt and the rocks off, and he managed to climb out of his grave, and he started off down the down. He went down the down. Now, the next day, some locals went back up there to obviously pay their respects again and see that it was fine, and they found the empty grave. And on closer inspection, they saw his huge footprints in the peat leading down the down again. And they suddenly stopped at this huge, massive standing stone. Now, the strange thing is, this standing stone was not there until that night. It wasn't there. They'd never seen it before. They were like, okay, something really weird is going on. And the only thing that they could think was that he had come back to life and he was starting to walk down, maybe to tell them he was fine, maybe he was hungry, you know, and that someone or something unknown to anyone had cast some kind of magical spell for whatever reason and had turned poor Maxi Major into a granite pillar. And that is the story of our Maxi Major. So no one knows who did it, why they did it to him, but that stone is still there, and his grave is still there, and it is on maps of Dartmoor, and people can go and see it, and it is named the Giant's Grave. The only thing is, the stone was always Maxi Major stone, but it is now the headless cross, because Christians back in the day didn't want any giant tale and resurrection tales of the giant, you know. But there are lots of place names that have got giants in them and different things that are linked to the giants that were the kings and queens of Devon before they got booted out and I suppose eventually died or turned to stone or returned to the earth or vanished into the legends that we can tell today. I hope you like this story, and maybe one day you'll go to Dartmoor and have a look at Maxim Major's grave and his turned to stone body, which even to this day cattle still hang around it. People have taken photos, they have been there, and there is nearly always some cattle that are around his stone, and sometimes you will see them rubbing gently and affectionately against it. So they know that it's Maxim Major, they can sense it, and even now through the ages they still know that he has a way with them and still miss him. But anyway, as I said, maybe you'll go and see it for yourself. Go look up some of those giant places and place names and all the things linked to all our West Country giants. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, a little thumbs up. Hit a ding-a-ling so you can hear about more things like this. Subscribe. You are all wonderful. Be healthy, be happy. Look after yourselves because it's damn important. Hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.